You've never
No.
been the outlier, the
No.
girl that said, "Can I play in a boys' game?"
Not at that point. I'd never done that. No. But that innings at Guildford, I think it was 105 not out. First time that I'd scored 100 against Australia. But it's just the way I played, because it was almost uncharacteristic. Got a bit of a reputation for being able to stick around and pick up runs more than anything else.
So you were a grafter?
I was a grafter. So many people who saw me play that innings said, "I've never seen you play like that before for England." I said, "Well, no, I've practiced it a couple of times."
But you've got the best record of any women's cricketer in World Cup history, certainly at the time.
I didn't know that. I know I got a decent record, yeah.
I mean, it's an all-round record, but
Yeah.
So you're right up there at the top.
Yeah.
It all proved very successful, didn't it?
Yes.
Because you've ended up a World Cup winner.
Yes.
And obviously,
Great occasion.
I would think that would be the pinnacle of your career. I don't know, you tell me. Welcome to Emirates Old Trafford and an edition of Beyond the Boundary, a very special edition today as well, because it's my pleasure to welcome along to the home of Lancashire cricket, Carole Hodges, who played for Lancashire and Cheshire as it was then, through the 70s, 80s and 90s, and was the preeminent women's cricketer in certainly the Northwest and almost certainly in England at the time. Carole, it's great to see you.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, and it comes as a bit of a surprise to me to know that you never played one single game here at Old Trafford, or Emirates Old Trafford as it is now.
No, never even got close to playing a game here. I think the closest I got, we did a couple of times use the indoor facilities, indoor nets and everything, but that was as close as we ever got.
But the women's game back in the 70s and 80s was so far removed from the current game, which basically has accelerated its progress so quickly over the last 5 years. I mean, you were just playing as basic amateurs. I think there was only one club in Lancashire, wasn't there, at the time?
It varied. There was a club at Timperley.
Oh yeah.
Obviously that's Cheshire.
Yeah.
There was a club at Leyland Motors.
You played there?
Which is where I played. At varying other times, there were clubs at Southport and St Anne's when I was playing. But really, it was difficult even to play club matches because you had a fair distance to travel even for them. So there was nothing round the corner.
So it begs the question then, how did you get interested in the game, and what was your background to becoming a cricketer?
Yeah, well, my parents were both interested, both loved cricket. Neither played particularly. My dad played a little bit, but not very much. But I grew up watching cricket on the TV. I think I went to my first test match, actually at Headingley, went to watch a day's cricket there. It would be when the West Indies were over towards the end of the 60s, so either it was 67, something like that. It was something like that anyway. So I would have been about 7 or 8 years old, and it was a freezing cold day at Headingley, and there's not really a huge amount of runs scored in the day, and my parents were quite worried. They sort of said, "Oh, you know, it wasn't very interesting.
She'll be bored.
It'll be put her off for life." And I just said in the car, "Oh, it was brilliant. Really enjoyed it. The bowling was great and the fielding was really good." So
well, that's fantastic. Can you remember who actually? Is it a blur, or were there any significant individuals that you watched?
One thing I particularly remember about it was quite a famous occasion, because I think it was it Keith Fletcher had been brought into the England side instead of, and I can't remember which Yorkshireman it was.
Phil Sharp, would it?
Could well have been. He dropped a catch at slip.
That's right, and Sharp was renowned as the best slip catcher in the country.
Yeah, well, I think it was that day that I was there.
Good memories, well done.
Yeah,
that's really good. So that proved a little bit of an inspiration. But if your parents didn't play much, and girls didn't play cricket,
that's right.
And when you went to school, there would have been no. So how did I mean, obviously parents encouraged you.
Yeah, I learnt to play in the path.
Did you?
At the side of the house, yeah. That's where I learnt to play.
Brothers and sisters?
No.
No?
No, only child. There were one or two lads lived in the area, and we'd play in the street like you did, go down to the local park and play a bit. But it wasn't until I was 14, and then I was actually introduced to somebody that played cricket and had played in the first Women's World Cup tournament the previous year in 1973. And she said, I'm going along to a practice on Sunday, do you want to come with me? So I ummed and ahed about it, eventually rang her back and said, yes, I would like to. And that turned out to be junior and senior county trials.
So
She hadn't mentioned that.
It wasn't just a run out for a local club then?
No, so I went along, and I had never played on a proper cricket pitch with fielders and everything around. I'd never done that before, so it was a bit of an experience. I'd never run properly between wickets before.
Had you worn kit? Had you worn pads and gloves and things?
I did have pads
Yeah.
and gloves. I did have those. I'd not worn them very often,
No.
but
So you'd never played in a boy. You never
No.
been the outlier, the girl that said, "Can I play in a boys' game?"
not at that point. I'd never done that. No, it was later on when I was already playing for England that I finally did play some matches for the local Fylde Cricket Club.
And you played in the
And I played
which team? First team, second
Third
team?
team.
Third team.
Yeah. There was good and bad things about that, really.
Well, I can imagine.
Yeah, the worst thing about it was the pitches that we were playing on,
Oh, right.
which some of them weren't great,
Hmm.
but at least it enabled me to get decent practice in.
It fascinates me to know that you basically just turned up at what turned out to be a county trial without ever having played. There must have been some sporting talent there. So did you play hockey? Did you play netball? What did you do?
Yeah, I played most sports at school.
Badminton you played as well?
Badminton I played, yeah.
Yeah. So your coordination was obviously very good.
Yeah.
And you had this hand-eye coordination and ball skill, presumably.
Yeah, I knew what I was doing with a cricket bat.
Mm.
And I knew what I was doing with the ball as well, even though I'd not actually done it in a proper sort of match situation before.
What you enjoyed your bowling as well. I mean, you were renowned. This is probably my ignorance, but you were more renowned as a batter. But your bowling turned out to be just as good, really.
I started off as a bowler who could bat a bit.
Okay.
When I was first playing, I bowled a little bit of medium pace. I slowed down then, became a off-spin bowler. Yeah. But eventually, after a few years, I became more of a batter who bowled a bit.
So this progress then from basically not playing at all to being thrown in at a sort of county trial and then progressing to England. You progressed quite quickly, didn't you?
Yeah, I pretty much went through the ranks, as it were. It's like I was 14 when that happened. The following year, I played my first senior match for Lancashire and Cheshire, and then pretty much stayed in the Lancashire side after that.
And it was Lancashire and Cheshire then,
It was
wasn't
Lancashire and Cheshire.
In fact, you only ever played for Lancashire and
Yes.
Cheshire, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
There was no such thing as Lancashire.
There was no such thing as Lancashire on its own at that point, no.
So there was a fair bit of travel involved. You mentioned Timpley. That's a fair way from Preston or Leyland or wherever.
Yeah.
So any of the aspiring young cricketers today, female or male, will wonder at this, won't they? Your progress through the game was uncharted, really. You were in uncharted territory, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I was. At that first trials, I was then approached by someone from Leyland Motors who said, "Do you want to join our club?" So, yeah, okay. And then the following weekend, they said, "We've got 2 matches next weekend. Would you like to play?" Yes. Where are they? One was at Wakefield and the other was at Birmingham. So
Well,
I
handy.
got a very quick introduction as to just how much travelling I was going to have to do.
But didn't Leyland Motors ladies team pack up at some point and you had to go and play for Wakefield? That was your home
It
team.
was, yes, yeah. What had happened was Leyland Motors finished, and when I was sort of still relatively inexperienced, but then I had to be a member of an affiliated club in order to play higher level.
Right.
So I tried to form a club at Fleetwood, but I found that very hard work. It worked for a couple of seasons,
Yeah.
but I felt I was having to do everything.
Yeah.
And then after the World Cup in 1988, which was in Australia, I decided to retire because I just had enough. That ended up with me just taking a year out.
You've been playing for about 12, 13, 14 years by then.
Yeah, and pretty constantly, although nothing to the same extent as they do these days.
Well, no.
But
No, you will. We'll come on to this.
I was working full time as well, so yeah. But I took the year out, and then at the end of '89, I decided, I hadn't really finished. I would like to come back, but I didn't want to have to go through all trying to keep a club running and everything like that. So Wakefield, really strong club, and I said, would it be okay if I came? And they sort of said, well, yeah, if you're prepared to do the travelling to even come to practices and things like that, then yes, we'll be happy to have you. So I ended up playing 4 seasons at Wakefield.
All right. Well, something that amazed me in your time, you played over 100 games for Lancashire and Cheshire, and I was astounded to see that you scored 10, not astounded that you scored 10 hundreds, but astounded that during that time, no other cricketer scored 100.
No.
Now, were you aware of the gulf between you and the rest of the girls and just how good you were?
Not really. I accepted the fact that, yes, there was a certain amount of reliance on me to get runs. But I think that was something that I just took in my stride, really. It was not a big deal. It was just how it was. And there were always other people that would chip in and do things as well. So,
but was playing for England then, obviously it was the pinnacle, but that was the thing that motivated you most, was it?
Oh, yeah.
The fact that you could get into the international side and be a substantial part of that.
Yeah, and that was my main ambition, to get there and do a good job.
And is that why you came back in the late 80s?
Yeah, I think I just felt that we just lost the World Cup final to Australia at the MCG. And
so you played at the MCG, you played at Lord's, but you didn't play at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
A sad indictment, isn't it?
And I'd played in 2 World Cup finals then and lost them both. And there was a World Cup coming up in 93 where the final was going to be at Lord's. So I thought, I'd rather give a go and finish there rather than just finish with a loss.
So there was a relatively long-term plan or decision. If you came back in '89, it's 4 years away.
Yeah.
And it all proved very successful, didn't it?
Yes.
Because you ended up a World Cup winner.
Yes. That was
and
obviously, great occasion.
I would think that would be the pinnacle of your career. I don't know. You tell me.
Yes, it was. Yeah, very much so. I had other occasions that I enjoyed from a personal point of view, but as an overall achievement, you can't beat winning the World Cup at Lord's, can you?
No, you're dead right. You can't. You're dead right. You rate an innings in that World Cup as your best ever, don't you?
Yes. That would be the one against Australia at Guildford.
Yeah.
We were left in a position because we'd lost to New Zealand earlier in the tournament. And we were left in a position where we really had to beat Australia, which wasn't the easiest of things to do.
No. Were they perceived to be the best team in the world at the time?
Well, they'd won the 2 previous World Cups, and they were, probably pretty much seen as the favourites for the tournament. But then, as it turned out, they didn't make the final. But
you beat New Zealand in the final.
We beat New Zealand in the final, yeah. But that innings at Guildford, I think it was 105 not out. It was the first time that I'd scored 100 against Australia, which was very good. I enjoyed that.
I bet you did.
But it's just the way I played, because it was almost uncharacteristic, because I got a bit of a reputation for being able to stick around and pick up runs more than anything else.
So you were a grafter?
I was a grafter.
Yeah.
Got towards the end of that innings and I just let fly. And so many people who saw me play that innings said, "Never seen you play like that before for England." I said, "Well, no, I've practiced it a couple of times playing for Wakefield, just sort of anticipating what was going to happen, stepping one way, then stepping the other, coming down, going back." So working on the principle that if the bowler didn't, if I didn't know where I was going to go, the bowler didn't know where I was going to go either.
Oh, that's not a bad principle to stick to.
So
you must look on, having played in innings like that then, you must look on today's game, not so much in awe as thinking, I could have done that.
Maybe. I'm not too sure that I could have done some of it, but...
well, it's difficult to compare eras.
It is. It's very difficult.
And perhaps we shouldn't.
Yeah.
But do you look on today's game and the way that the women's game has progressed very quickly? Do you look on that with envy at all?
Not really. I thoroughly enjoyed playing when I did. There are some things that I look at and think, wow, that would have been great when I was playing. But...
Such as?
Maybe not having to pay for quite so much stuff.
Well, yeah, good point.
That's one of the main things, because we had to buy everything.
Yeah.
We paid our airfares going on tours.
Did you?
Abroad. Yeah.
What, when you went to the World Cup?
Yeah. We paid it.
You had to pay to go and play in the World Cup?
We paid to go and play. And the unfortunate thing was that there were some people that had to pull out of availability for selection because they couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So, that's one thing that it would have been nice. Maybe staying at one or two, some better accommodation sometimes. But,
and playing on better surfaces, maybe. Mind you played at Lord's and the MCG. You can't.
Yeah, I can't complain too much about the places that
I
played internationally.
I hesitate to ask this question, but were you allowed in the pavilion at Lord's?
Yes. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Although there was quite a funny story from the World Cup final in '93, because after the match, sort of family and friends were invited into the chairman's room or whatever it is at Lord's.
Committee room. Yeah.
Committee room, that's it. And to meet John Major, who was the Prime Minister, and of course, big cricket fan. And he was there that day. And he was my fiancé at that point, had come down to watch. And I said, come on in. He said, I haven't got a tie. Oh, so, well, okay.
Well, he is a farmer.
Well, yeah. So anyway, he managed to acquire a tie.
Oh, yeah.
And then someone said to him, because I thought, tie, that's what you need to get in. And then he tried to get in, steward there saying, oh, you can't come in, you've not got a jacket on. Oh, God. So he went and borrowed my dad's jacket. Well, my dad was a much bigger guy than my fiancé. And he looked absolutely ridiculous with his jacket on. But he was able to go in.
They let him in?
Oh, yeah, they let him in. Yeah,
that's about right.
So that was quite funny.
What about there was very little publicity then. There might have been some media, a little bit of written media interest, but there was no TV, was it?
Actually, that World Cup final was televised.
Was it?
It was shown
by BBC.
It was shown live on BBC. I think it was BBC Two. I think it was quite a late decision
Mm.
to have it on the TV. I don't think it was originally supposed to be shown live, but I think at that point the England men's team weren't doing very well. And I think
No, 93.
Yeah.
Not very good.
No,
then at
it was a
all.
bit of a bad year, that one, I
It
think.
was, yeah.
And we did manage to get a fair bit of media coverage generally, because I think we were an England team that was actually doing quite well.
Quite right too. No spin-offs though. No commercial spin-offs. For
No,
you. No.
No. And I retired at the end of that season anyway.
Yeah.
Worked on the principle that my plan had worked, and I wasn't going to do better than a winning World Cup at Lords. So
Well,
best to call it a day.
no. Well, you finished on a high. That's fantastic, and a lot of cricketers would want to do the same. You were. It was acknowledged, I think, and it's difficult to quantify, but you've got the best record of any women's cricketer in World Cup history, certainly at the time.
I didn't know that. I know I got a decent record, yeah.
I mean, it's an all-round record, but it.
Yeah.
So you're right up there at the top.
Yeah.
Top of the tree.
Yeah, I did get Player of the Series in the '88 World Cup actually, so that was won a Waterford crystal vase, which stood about that high.
You managed to get it in your hand baggage.
It had gone from Ireland. The Irish team had taken it out to Australia, and then I had to bring it back again. So, yeah, it was very well looked after, because various members of the squad. Have you got it? Is it safe? Yeah, it's fine.
So moving forward, I mean, it's fascinating that you finished at the top of the tree. You went out when you wanted to. It must have been very, very gratifying for you. Do you still take an interest in the game, both men's and women's?
I do, yes, yeah. Like this World Cup at the moment, I haven't missed a match.
Really?
No, I've seen every single game.
Have you?
Yeah.
You've sat there and watched everything.
Sat and watched it, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what do you think?
I've enjoyed the tournament. Yeah, certainly.
Was it a bit too long? But you're an avid cricket fanatic.
I'm an avid cricket fan, so six weeks of watching cricket every day is great. But I could imagine that, yeah, it might have been just a little bit long.
And I mean, this programme will go out over time. But come on, then, we're at the semi-final stage. Who do you think's going to win?
You can't look beyond India, really, at the moment.
No, I don't think you can.
I think they've got the best batting lineup and the best bowling lineup.
Yeah.
I can't help but think it's the team with the best bowling lineup that will win. And
Pretty astute.
They've got 5 outstanding bowlers. So
They have. What about women's cricket? Do you watch that? And I think you must watch on with a bit of pride that you were a founder of the modern game, if you like. But the way it's progressed.
Oh yeah. Seeing the way it's progressed is phenomenal. I would like to think that during the time that I played, certain things came more into being while I was playing. Certainly the fitness testing and things like that, that started to come in. We started as in the build-up to 93 to work with a sports psychologist as well as the trainers that were training, not necessarily just fitness, but also how to do things with less injury risk and things like that. So there was certainly more sort of sports science coming into it for that 93 World Cup. Most of that was through the coach of the time, Ruth Prideaux.
Okay.
She got a lot of that, and she very sort of forward thinking in.
Have you any desire to be involved in any way with the modern game?
Not really. I'm quite happy just to watch it. It's. I did try a bit of coaching when I first stopped playing, but very quickly discovered that I'm not really a coach. Don't really enjoy it. But for 10 years after playing, I did a lot of scoring.
Oh yeah.
Enjoyed that.
Men's and women? Or mainly women?
No, it was predominantly the women.
Yeah.
But I scored quite a few England matches. Probably one of the few people that have actually played at Lord's and scored an international at Lord's as well. There'll be plenty of people who umpired and played, but possibly not so many who've scored and played. So.
And you didn't have a wish to go into umpiring or anything like that?
No. Scoring was my forte.
You seem delightfully contented with what you've done and very humble about your achievements. Would you swap any of that for playing now?
No. I enjoyed playing when I played.
Carole, that's great. It's been fascinating to talk to you. Thank you very much for coming down to Emirates Old Trafford, and let's hope we see a lot more of you down here and come and watch.
I would
whenever.
certainly love to come whenever I can. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.